It's the Shop with Giselle Denis show on the Culture Channel on TVU. And we're here again with herself, Giselle. How are you doing?
I'm good.
It's
Sun
totally
is shining.
it's totally summer. So we are going to be into the mountain portfolio. What can you say off the top of your head on that?
Actually, I started painting mountains because I was getting some requests on, you paint flowers and you paint trees and can you do some mountainscapes? And so I've started to get commissioned to do them. But I was afraid at first. I probably didn't tackle my first mountain when it probably took me about a couple years to really feel comfortable enough to go. I've said this before, I painted in my head 1,000 times before I painted on a canvas. So you dream about it, it's always being sort of painted in your mind. And so once you've done that enough, where you feel comfortable enough to go, okay, now I'm going to commit to painting this on canvas. And it's just like anything. You got to figure out, how do I paint mountains? I don't want to stare at other paintings of mountains. I want to stare at the mountains and paint them how I paint them. How do I interpret the mountains? What's my voice as an artist? And what does that look like? So after I sort of painted it in my mind and knew the tools I would use and the technique and started working at it, I started to develop this style and way of making them, and they became quite colorful. So the first mountain piece I did was mostly like the blues and the greens and the browns in the mountain with some white caps. And then they quickly became like signature me, Giselle, with all of this color in the mountains. And I really embraced my approach is very thick in texture and colorful, and don't make any apologies for it. There's a few there in the collection as you're scrolling that are more like pastel in color. Those are, so that when you scroll down, those are usually the older works, and the ones that are at the top are the newest works. When I put a new painting out on the website, it becomes sort of first in the series. But that's kind of, that's it there. That's what I currently have in my mountain series.
Yeah, I know I'm going to get to three of them, but that's interesting. Are you saying that is this a seasonal change, or this is over the course of years that your the hues and the values and the intensities, like the colors and the brightness, changed, or you don't paint this way anymore down here?
No, I do. It's just, so probably the oldest painting would be dated to maybe 2017. My paintings generally don't stick around too long. Like usually, some I sell while they're still wet on the easel. Some kick around the studio for a while until the right owner comes around for the painting that they're looking for. But I when I'm making a painting, they tend to have some similar color combinations as I'm working them. So I might make one or two mountain paintings and then move on to a forest scene. Generally, it seems like the flow of it is I'll stick to this color palette for a while, whether it's a mountain or a forest or flowers or whatever. And then I'll move on to another color palette. So I think for a while I was doing those pastel-ish colors. Painting like this was done probably right after, not far from my travels in Dubai. I was dabbling with, I know it's funny because it's like, well, is there mountains in Dubai? Well, not really, but there's people I would meet in Dubai who are from India. I didn't actually know that there were mountains in India, and I met a lot of people from India, and they would walk by me and tell me, oh my gosh, this reminds me of home. Like, you have no idea, and you're a Canadian, and what are you doing in Dubai? And this is so inspiring. And they love the use of color and the fact that it reminded them of a place. So this one's Fix Your Eyes on the Mountains. And I didn't write a description other than just like acrylics on canvas. Sometimes that gets overlooked, but it's nice sometimes too, because then it leaves the viewer going like, giving their own interpretation rather than always hearing from me. So this one is about focus. It's about, really letting something guide you and staying focused on the thing that's guiding you. And we can get as an artist, I get a lot of, I can be pulled in 10,000 different directions. And that can really destroy creative processes. So I've found anyways, I've had to stay quite focused. And I often have these conversations with mostly my husband, my partner, who brings me back to, okay, so why don't I take on requests like this? Why did I say no to that? Why am I doing it this way again? And so I get asked a lot, like, come you just paint this stuff? How come you don't paint people? How come you don't paint elephants? Why don't you paint ducks on a river or whatever? And so I found for me, the more focused and narrow I've been on my, I don't know if I've used this analogy before, but I like to think of my life as a speedboat, not an aircraft carrier. And so when I'm on my speedboat, I've had to throw off a whole bunch of baggage and things that weigh me down and make me go really slow in the water and cause me to sink. But if I'm an aircraft carrier and I'm carrying all this stuff, it slows me down. I take on everything. It's too much for one person to handle, and you can't really move forward and hit the target that you're shooting for. So when I've been able to sort of throw off all the expectations of what people want me to be or hope I would be or whatever, and stay focused and narrow in the themes that I'm painting, why I say yes to the things I say yes to, that kind of thing. So it's kind of, sorry, go on and on about that, but it's about focus.
That's the thing. What I'm becoming more aware of is that exactly what you were just speaking about, in a way, in that complexity of that is embedded in the art. So when you experience your art, it's releasing those complex insights of wisdom that you're just sharing. That's like success coach. You know what I mean? Like you're psychology, not psychology, but these success people. They're very focused that way. And what you were saying about movement, the diagonal lines indicate movement. They lead, and the lines all lead the eye. So horizontal lines are continuity and rest. There is a horizontalness to it, but it's contained in the space that you've created, and that again, is leading towards the and you have lots of up moving lines in there, which is they called it. They word that. Anyways, it's a metaphysical, looking up, that there's movement upwards. So, fixing your eyes on your goal and going, and then again the texture. Your work is very, very complex. So for me to apply all these sophisticated analysis quickly is difficult, but I can see the effect. And again, I love how you do your skies. Again, it's almost like I'm seeing like there's more imagery, 3D imagery, even in the white strokes. So it's good, and the color, and your description. The fact that people from the Hindu Kush, which is the Kashmir area, were recognizing their mountains, and because this is like basically on the equator. So even though the Himalayas there's some peaks there for sure, but they're covered with, most of it's just covered with lush grounds. So so it's very.
And it's interesting too because I felt like I was able to connect to people from a region like that. So here I am, a white girl in Dubai, painting for people from all over the world, and I'm not painting Dubai scenes. I'm not painting the Burj Khalifa. I'm not painting the desert. But I was able, by staying narrow and focused on what I do and bringing my voice over there, by being the truest I could be to myself and not let people dictate to me, well, if you're going all the way to Dubai, you should be painting the desert. You should. But I trusted my intuition, and I trusted my own process and self and images that I paint, and know that, no, I'm going to stick to what I paint. I'm not going to let anyone else bully me or tell me that I'm doing it wrong and I should be doing it a certain way. And look I was able to connect. I'm able to connect with these people who we have nothing in common other than this thing I've painted, and they connected to it, and they connected to me because of that. And so I think I connected even better to them because I wasn't trying too hard to connect. It just naturally happened. So yeah, it's really interesting.
This is Mountains of Hope, and you're right. Because we're all hoping for something, hope keeps our hearts alive. It keeps our senses sensing, our dreams dreaming, and our imagination wild. Hope.
You want to go first on this one?
Well, again, we have just looking at it without any of the fantastic depth and space and negative space that you create, just the lines that are there. They are moving from left to right, and there's some that come down, like from the left to right comes down. So that is a focus where it is talking about ideas coming from the place of imagination idea back into the physical, and then it goes back up, which is ideas that now reach out to the higher planes. So that's what the lines, the movement is. I get the movement from bottom left, and then converges and then up. That's the movement. And I don't see any. There is shapes, of course, in the flowers, and then knowing, because I watch every show, but I'm also in every show, that a lot of times flowers mean people, and this is crowds of people, moving through into these mountains of hope, and the coming from coming back to reality, but then finding that reality and moving into better times. Again, they say so much about the colors and the hues, the values, and the intensities. I'm learning more about it. I can't speak directly from this form of analysis, but what I can say it makes me feel is that the yellow always brightens my mind. It makes me, it's intelligence. Red for me is things that you're passionate about. Blues are always, to me, emotions, and your blues are very rarely do you have deep blues. Your blues are always very bright and light, and then the place, moving. To me, I always see this place to go, either the art is flowing out of it, or I'm moving through the art to that place. So there's always upbeat, positive, happy movement. So Mountains of Hope is a great name. That's mine.
Awesome. And hope, I've probably said this before in another video, but hope is the underlining theme of all of my work. And so I know that's very abstract concept, but really it's quite simple as well. And as long as I can sort of, it's even more than just bringing joy. It's like if you have hope, you can continue. If you have hope, you can keep moving forward. Without hope, it's like, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that was the best word we could come up with that made sense for why I do what I do, why I paint what I paint. Some days I'm like, why do I do that? Why am I doing this again? Not very often, but when I get tired, and then, right, okay. And it, like, again, it's not, the paintings aren't just for me. The paintings, I have this ability, this talent, gift, whatever you want to call it, to make art that makes sense to people. And it seems that people are connecting to it for all sorts of reasons, every kind of reason. And that means everything. That's everything. If you're connecting to it and it's saying something to you, it's speaking to your heart, then I've done my job well. So that's what you always hope for. I hope to be hope through the art.
So good. So there's so much more to say there. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But let's go to
forever, I know.
The meeting place. Now this is for the earlier description. Let's read what it says. Sometimes going with the flow is better than making definitive plans always so far ahead of time. There's something about letting the meeting place organically appear in front of you. People I met last year through the Canadian Embassy in the United Arab Emirates contacted me and asked if we would like to tour around Abu Dhabi. We've only met them once, but decided to meet up with them. We had the most incredible day touring: the Grand Mosque, the Louvre, the high tea at the Emirates Palace, and then a traditional fish dinner at an Iraqi restaurant. We know we've made new friends with our generous and friendly tour guides. He was a walking encyclopedia of the UAE. We learned so much and had a wonderful day. I'm so glad we have not planned every second of every day. Leaving time for the spontaneous can be the most satisfying adventure. This piece was painted at the Raffles Hotel during duding during my
Oh boy,
residency. I know
I gotta go
we
back
found
in there
we found
and
it.
edit.
You're feeling like a cowboy that day. Sorry,
Yeah, I write so
residency.
fast
I
sometimes
know.
I forget to like
Hey,
double check.
I regularly get emails. Great video, but can you change it? Residency in Dubai. Isn't that interesting? Great insight. And
Yeah,
now
so go ahead.
the colors. They are less. Their value would be darker than what you're doing now, and their intensity would be duller than what you're doing now by a huge amount. Same kind of strokes, but you know what? As fascinating as for certain. You know, I can see the like it's a different kind of richness. The color, the purples, right? Are very interesting. And the sky,
Mhm.
I can see a lot of knife work there in the sky. How big is this now? This is a big one. This is this is a 5 foot by 4 foot. So
Yeah,
this is a
big
imposing.
one.
The water, even so, but see the blues. You're other than the blue in the red, right, which is darker. You even you're like so for me the emotion. Now look at again where the lines there's lots of horizontal line, right? So this is the continuation of rest, right?
The calming
So
effect.
yeah, and then the variety of mountains up and down. You know, so there's it's interesting that you say meeting place because there's all different. The lines would indicate all sorts of people coming from different directions, and some are going up, some are coming down. So that's really good. And then the flowers aren't as distinct as now, but
Hmm.
knowing that it's you know it's still come for. I get a not I get a still it's still calm. I get a different kind of joy out of it. Your other the stuff now is so it's like a leaping joy. You know, you look at your art and you just feel like jumping. You know, as you walk past it.
Hmm.
This is more of a back of your arms warm kind of joy. You know,
Yeah, and
that's what I
sometimes
say.
it's nice to it's sometimes it's nice to sort of um break up the predictability, I suppose, or what's the better word, but break up what you're doing and just kind of like, okay, it's the same, maybe the same scene, but let's flip it and do different hues and different colors and still be myself and still have my voice in the work. But then maybe I was influenced by perhaps just like the colors of clothing or walking by me or the bouquet. They get fresh bouquet of flowers when I was painting this at that hotel. They get fresh flowers every other day. And so sort of being like half the time it's a subliminal being influenced. You don't really necessarily know and are aware of what's happening, but you can't help it. Like you can't help but one day you feel more lively and jumpy, another day you might feel more calm. And so, yeah, I thought maybe I'll try this color combination. And that's the other thing too. I've never tried this color combination before. Let's see where this goes. And, make that dark purple be sort of the base that I work and build from and what goes good with that color. And as you're mixing the paint on the palette, you're experimenting on the canvas. Honestly, every painting I make is an experiment. It's a committed experiment right on canvas. And the nice thing with acrylics, you can let's say you add a color and you go, wow, that didn't work at all. You can just kind of cover it up, go over top and do another layer. And I really like the sort of Monet-esque feel of the field of flowers there, where it's more like, lack of a better word, smooshes of paint rather than
Yeah.
uniform actual, this is a certain type of flower. I like to give a suggestion of color, and you can see that they're flowers, but you wouldn't be able to necessarily point out what kind of flowers they are. It can drive botanists crazy, and I love it because it's like, it's not about this is where this mountain scene was. It's not about these are the flowers that grow together in nature. It's not about that. It's always about the feeling of a place. And so if I can create that feeling with my image, these colors, the combination of color, the movement of the piece, if I can create a feeling in you and a memory or the feeling of a place you have been, or right, because it's like, it's not the person you meet, it's how they make you feel is what you remember. And so that's something I like to try and trigger in people, and maybe not trigger, but that's not the right word. That's usually used as a negative word, but something to make you remember, like, oh yeah, I've been to a place like that. And I remember that was when, I don't know, I got inspiration to write that book, or I found out I was pregnant, or, you know, my mom gave me this beautiful memory or some, anyway. So it's all about the feeling of a place, and that I can try and create with paint. And you just trust that hopefully this translates well from the palette to the painting.
And you know what? It does, because the fact that you can paint these mountains in colors that mountains do not exist in, yet when I sit here and look at the painting, I'm getting the feeling of the majesty of those mountains as if I was there. So,
And it also, hopefully, next time you look at the mountains, maybe you'll look at the mountains differently. You know,
and
maybe you'll look at a field of
see a little
flowers
bit,
differently.
yeah, oh, for sure. And see a little iron
Yeah,
in
like,
there, or a
oh
little
yeah, actually see a
amethyst,
lot
yeah.
more color. You know, maybe you'll see a lot more color next time, or you'll feel something different next time, and you'll sort of go deeper in thought, deeper in paying attention and being in the moment, right? We can get so busy and like, oh yeah, those mountains, those are pretty, and just move on. But maybe you'll look at them and take a bit longer of a moment to enjoy what you're seeing.
It's awesome. Shop with Giselle Denis on the Culture Channel, only on TVU. Thank you, Giselle.
Thanks, James.